So a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there were some cosmic and sciencey things brewing. Then there was ultimately this big bang and boom, Earth was created. Now, once human evolution started, people began to do something that's internally embedded in our souls. Argue and debate. That's right. Right after they figured out that whole shelter, fire, water thing, they went into debates. Fast or slow, hot or cold, what's for dinner?
Beef. It's what's for dinner.
Or something to that effect. These debates are things that will always carry on. We'll always have things to say, and this is no different when it comes to wheel fitment. People want to choose something for their car. They want the bigger or the smaller. And while I'm bigger than maybe I would like to be, there's some people that will prefer smaller, which is good for a lot of different people. However, when we get into talking about wheel fitments, there are some cars that just naturally have the ability to accept all of these things. Have a large fitment range. They can put wide wheels or narrow wheels, tall wheels or short wheels. And we're gonna talk about the 5 popular cars that you can pick up right now that allow you to have choices across the spectrum. Let's get into it. What is up? I'm Scott from Koenig, and if you're new here, welcome. Nice to see you here. As long as you're here, take off your jacket, make yourself something to eat, and maybe explore the rest of our YouTube channel. So today we're going to be talking about 5 cars that you can grab or pick up, or maybe you own, that have a large range of fitment options. We're going to talk about them. Let's get into it right now. Car number 1, the 350Z. Listen, I'm not even saying this one because I'm biased, because I have one, but it is a car that takes an enormous amount of wheel fitment. You can run wide wheels, you can run narrower wheels, you can run low offset wheels, and you can run high offset wheels. However, if you're gonna be one of those people that's gonna do the high offset thing and make it so that the wheels make the car look like it's gonna fall over when it turns, then I implore you to leave the channel right now. So the Z is one of those cars that can just take a lot of different wheel fitment options. And you can go as narrow as 8 or 8.5 in the front. Right around a 35 offset, you can go as low as about 9.5 at a 25 millimeter offset. Now, obviously that's in width. Now, as far as diameter goes, I would say 17 inch right up through the 20 inch guys. If you're one of those ballers, you know, if you're a blinger, you might want those 20s. A lot of packages you're gonna find, they're gonna be centered right around 18 inches. So popular common size that we see on the front of that car is gonna be an 18.9 or 18.9.5, around a 25 millimeter offset. Now, what you should expect to this. This is aggressive. It is aggressive. It's all the wheel. And yes, you're gonna have people that are gonna argue. I'm sure they're in the comments right now. No, you could put a lot bigger wheel in the car. You could put the lower offset. Trust me, I did it. I put 10.5s in the front. Listen, you wanna do that, go for it. But here's where it gets tough. You're gonna have to make it work. And every one of these fools that's on the internet riding around telling you the 10.5s work fine on the front of that car, not the case. Or they're stretching the heck of the tire, or they're cambering in, they're making adjustments. That's the point. If you're gonna do those things, it's not that they can't be done, I just can't tell you to do them. So stay in that 9.5 to 25 offset range at the max, and you will be looking stuffed and good, pause, in a way that will have you standing out from the rest without having to do anything complicated to your fenders. Now let's jump into the rear. The rear, again, has a lot of wheel options, and the reason is the 350Z really swallows wheels. It really does take an enormous amount of wheels, and that's why you'll read on the internet, you'll find people across the board that are running wheels that are gonna be anything from like 11.5 inches wide in the rear to something as narrow as maybe a 9 inch. Now, again, one of the things you're gonna wanna consider is the fact what fits without you having to do modification. And that's primarily what we're gonna be talking about here. Look, at the end of the day, use a 10.5 at a 25, 9.5 in the front at a 25. You're gonna have a really, really aggressive but decent fitting setup on the 350Z. And again, that's a good look. So, your decision, you choose. On my 350Z, I run 9.5 at 25 in the front, and I run a 10.5 at a 25 in the rear. So do what you want. So one of the most popular cars in the world, especially when it comes to performance enthusiasts, has to be the Mazda Miata. The Miata is one of those cars that, yes, it was not fast. Arguably, if you were on that side of the fence, it wasn't cool looking out of the box, but you can drive that car full out on a racetrack without really having to lift. Driving a car that's right at the envelope of what's possible on the track is what makes the car exciting to drive. And that's one of the reasons it's had such a cult following. So with all that aftermarket support, you're gonna clearly have some options when it comes to your wheels and tires. Majority of these fitments are going to be square. You're gonna see a lot of fitments that are gonna be 15, 7.5, 35 offset all the way around, and that's gonna be a good fit for the car. You're also gonna see things like 15.8, 25 offset, or 15.8, 35 offset all the way around. Again, 15.8 or 35 offset is a better fit. If you're not planning to do anything. For the performance guys, you'll see often they'll run the 25. They'll go for a little bit of extra track width, right? Now you'll also see people that will run everything from 15/9 and up. Now, 15/9, you're gonna need coilovers to run. It's just one of those things. You need to get some inboard clearance back, and that's what the coilover does for you, narrower perch. Now, there's other wheel options. There's some cool things, 15.9.5s that are out there. Even we make a decagram in 15/10. It's exclusive through Goodwin Racing, so make sure you head over to Goodwin Racing. They have to be the kings of everything that is Miata. So go check them out, see all the things that they suggest, and you know, if you're looking for some muscle for your Miata, that's the place to get it. So jumping into our third car here, this is the WRX. Now, I want to preface this real quick. We're not talking about the earlier models. The earlier models were sort of capped. You really couldn't get too much more aggressive than about an 8.5-inch width at about a 35mm offset. And even at that, if you overtired the car there, you could introduce some rubbing. So just keep that in mind. We're really talking about when we start to get into like the 2015 and later. For those of you that are saying that, well, 2015, that's like recent. Remember, we're in 2022. It's 7 years old already. So just keep that in mind. But the WRX was a great car to have some options. The later models, 2015 and up, you can run almost a 9.5 at a 35, all the way down to like an 8.5 at like a 35, and some people even run an 8.5 in like a 43-ish. So why does that car have so much range? See, in 15, they started to really give the body that the STI had. It gave it more fender room, so it allowed it to run a fitment that was much better than the previous generations. If you have a Brembo option, especially in the later model years that are here now, you have to understand, you need to consider what the brakes are going to do to your fitment. That means be careful about going through with anything concave. Be careful about using something that's going to have a big lip, because those things are going to limit your caliper clearance and could easily present to you a problem. The WRX is a great candidate for having a lot of different wheel choices and wheel options. And yes, there are people that go wider than 9.5. Again, that's outside of our fitment range, so we're not going to even talk about it. So you probably have guessed this next car, and that is a Honda Civic. How could we not talk about wheel fitments without talking about the elusive Honda Civic, right? The one that everybody has probably ever had. So Honda Civic is pretty interesting because in the beginning part, the car really could only take a 7.5 or 8-inch wide wheel, and then all of a sudden everybody pushed the envelope. See, the right fit for most of those cars are going to be on the early years is 7.5, about 35mm offset. But plenty of people ran wider, right? We all know who they are. You've seen them on the street. The wheels kind of hang outside of the car, but you know, they're doing it. The later model Civic, once we start pushing forward on the later model Civics, they really took a lot of wheel. Once we get into 4.5 Civics, 5 lug Civics, now you really open up the range and you'll see cars there running 8.5-inch square, 8-inch square, right around a 43 offset. You'll also see them going to 8.5-inch wide and around 35 offset. But then you'll start to see a lot of the guys that are doing 9.5-inch wheels in the back at around a 35 or a 40. They're going with that higher offset, but they're going with a wider wheel. And they're doing kind of like a hybrid in the front. And I don't want to get too much into it, and the reason is because the correct fit on the car is going to be about 8.5-inch at a 43. Just be careful about going the extra length. But the car has more room in the body, meaning that you can get away with more. And if you're going to get away with more, that's a perfect platform to be in to do something cool. So use the internet as your guide. Just remember, 8.5 inch around a 43, 8.5 inch around a 35. That's kind of where the correct fit is. As you start to go wider and more aggressive, just be conscious of what you're doing so you don't get yourself into trouble. But the car does have a lot more room than the earlier Civics did, and it's pretty interesting to see what kind of wheel fitments people are getting away with. When we talk about wheel fitments, it probably would be wrong of us for not including this group of cars, and it's a big group, and that's the BMW 3 Series. Now, we all know if you're a Euro guy or if you're just a plain car guy, saying BMW 3 Series is a complicated thing because there are just so many different versions of that same car. But they all seem to have pretty much the same fitment. Until recently. Then they changed bolt patterns. The offset changed a little bit too. So let's talk about pretty much every 3 Series that's not brand new BMW. Bottom line is 8.5 inch in the front around an ET35, 9.5 inch in the rear around ET35. Those cars take diameters that are 16 all the way up through 20. You know how many different types of wheels you've seen on these cars over the years? I mean, it's incredible. The car takes an enormous amount of range as far as the wheel fitment that you can use. And you can run square, you can run staggered, you can run pretty wide in the rear if you want to make the accommodations. But the correct fit on the car, if you're looking just for a base 3 Series, doesn't have anything crazy, Brembo's not an M3, it's just going to be a 3 Series, you're basically going to get away with 8.5 in the front, right around an ET35, 9.5 in the rear around an ET35. But again, so many different options to perfect, detail, move out, bring back in. You have the options to do something that you like to accomplish the look that you want. So that's pretty much it. Now, I know that we've been vague in some parts or different things like that, but use the fitments that we've talked about. Use these wheels and these cars to explore the internet and find the different options that are out there for you. I promise you that there's so many, it's gonna almost be hard for you to take a choice. So go ahead, look, find the thing that appeals to you the most, then do a little research to make sure that it does fit. But again, any questions or comments about fitments, you just throw them below. So that's it for this one. We will catch you on the next one.